Imagine being fined hundreds of dollars by your own city for breaking a rule that is, well, completely invisible.
Right.
Like no signs, no warnings, no painted lines on the pavement.
Just a ticket.
Exactly. Just a neon-colored ticket tucked under your windshield wiper in the dead of night, citing this mysterious unposted rule called Code 000002.
It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel, honestly.
It really does. But today, we are looking at a single piece of paper that fights back against exactly that. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Usually, we use this time together to look at massive global trends or sweeping historical events. But today, our mission is a bit different.
Yeah, we are stepping away from the whole global news cycle.
Right. We want to examine something hyper-local, yet so incredibly relatable to anyone who has ever had to, navigate red tape just to exist in their own neighborhood.
It really is a perfect micro-study of a much larger macro problem, because what we are examining today is a grassroots civic document. But the weight of what it represents and the incredible amount of effort it took to draft it is just immense.
Exactly. We are looking at the Sewells Road residential parking petition. It's a document drafted by the residents of a specific townhouse complex at 401 Sewells Road, located in Scarborough.
Right.
And on paper, they are fighting for something so basic, it almost sounds absurd to have to formally ask for it. They just want the right to park their cars safely outside their own homes overnight.
Which shouldn't be a huge ask.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this, because on the surface, a parking petition sounds like, the most mundane neighborhood squabble in the world.
It really does. It sounds like a few neighbors complaining about a crowded street.
Yeah.
But when you actually read the specific text of this petition, and when you look at the highly technical language these residents are forced to use, it elevates into something much bigger. This document is a masterclass in how ordinary citizens have to navigate massive, impersonal, bureaucratic machinery, just to solve fundamental structural failures in their daily lives.
Right. And before we even look at what these residents are demanding from the city, we really have to understand the physical reality of where they live.
The environment that forced this petition into existence in the first place.
Exactly. The document states right up front that the townhouse complex at 401 Sewells Road is facing a, quote, severe structural parking shortage.
And that one phrase, severe structural parking shortage, that is the linchpin of the entire document.
Wow.
Yeah, they are being incredibly deliberate with that exact wording.
I want to pause on that because it's such a loaded phrase. Think about buying a townhouse.
Right.
You make the biggest purchase of your life, you move your family in, and then you discover that the fundamental design of the place you live doesn't actually accommodate the basic reality of living there.
It's a nightmare.
It's like buying a brand new top-of-the-line smartphone, bringing it home, opening the box, and realizing the manufacturer didn't build a charging port into the phone.
That is a great way to put it.
Like, sure, the screen looks great, but how are you supposed to keep it running?
Right.
If a complex is built with a structural shortage, how does a city expect the residents to function on a daily basis?
Well, that is the exact tension driving this whole issue. And what's fascinating here is how the petition uses that specific architectural reality to legally justify a demand for public space.
Because they use the word structural.
Exactly. By using the word structural, they are executing a very specific legal maneuver. They are actively shifting the burden of blame.
Oh, I see.
They aren't saying, hey, we all decided to buy 3 cars per family and now our driveways are a little cramped.
Right. They're making it clear this isn't a lifestyle choice or just a matter of convenience.
Precisely. They are explicitly pointing to a fundamental flaw in the physical design and the capacity of the townhouse complex itself.
The architecture failed them.
Yes. The planners, the developers, and the municipal boards who originally approved the site footprint at 401 Sewells Road simply did not allocate enough physical space for the vehicles of the people who actually live there.
Wow. So they literally have nowhere to go.
Right. The residents are physically out of space inside their own property lines.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
If you buy into a complex and you can see with your own eyes that there isn't enough parking, isn't that kind of on you?
That's a fair question.
Like, why should the city have to carve out public space on the street to fix a private development's problem?
That is exactly the argument the city would typically make. And that is why the word severe paired with structural is so critical here. The residents are arguing that the shortage is so extreme that it transcends private inconvenience and becomes a public infrastructure failure.
Right, because the city approved it.
Exactly. They are implying that the city approved a development that cannot contain its own footprint. They are literally spilling out of their own property boundaries just to exist.
Yeah.
So they have no choice but to push out of the private sphere of their complex and into the public sphere of the municipal street.
And the moment they cross that line, the moment their tires touch the public street, they enter a completely different jurisdiction.
With a completely different set of rules.
Right. Which brings us to the invisible wall they hit.
Yes. Code 000002.
The petition states that once these residents park on the street, they are being hit with punitive fines under an unposted 3-hour limit. And they specifically cite this limit as Code 000002.
Code 000002. I mean, it doesn't even sound like a civic bylaw, does it?
No.
It sounds like a glitch in the matrix or an error message on a broken server.
It totally does.
Yeah.
And wait, I really need to push back on this whole concept of an unposted limit. How is that even legally enforceable thing? It's like playing a really high-stakes board game with your family, but the banker is just making up hidden rules to bankrupt you.
Right, just inventing things as you play.
Yeah, like, oh, you landed on this square, you owe me $200, and you're like, but it doesn't say that anywhere on the board.
And they say, doesn't matter, it's an unposted rule, pay up.
Exactly. How can a city penalize someone for a rule they literally cannot see?
Well, the municipal argument is usually that a city can't possibly afford to put up a metal sign for every single default bylaw on every single residential street.
I mean, I guess that makes some sense.
Right. If they did, the sidewalks would just be a forest of metal poles. Cities rely on blanket default rules like a citywide 3-hour parking limit, and they put the onus on the resident to just know the overarching bylaws.
Okay, I hear that. Cities need default rules so the streets don't turn into, like, long-term junkyards. But there is a massive difference between a default rule meant to stop abandoned cars and an invisible trap that catches people who are just coming home from work.
Huge difference.
The friction here is the discovery process. These residents aren't learning about Code 00002 from a helpful welcome packet, you know?
No, they are discovering it through financial punishment.
Exactly.
And that is the exact frustration driving this petition. And if you look closely at the language the residents use to describe this experience, it's very deliberate.
What do you mean?
Well, they explicitly state they are being subjected to punitive fines while simply trying to park safely outside their own homes.
Ah, I see.
That juxtaposition is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, punitive versus safely. That's a really stark contrast.
They are drawing a very sharp narrative line for the city officials reading this document. On one hand, you have the deeply human fundamental desire for safety and proximity to home.
We just want our vehicles to be safe outside our front door.
Exactly. And on the other hand, you have the perceived hostility of the city. The city isn't just managing traffic, the city is being punitive.
It is actively punishing them based on a secret rule.
Right. This CAN 000002 acts as an invisible net. It's a perfect example of the disconnect between everyday living and hidden municipal bureaucracy.
It paints a picture of this exhausting daily reality for anyone living at 401 Sewells Road.
It really does.
Like you finish a long shift, you navigate your commute, you come home, but your complex has no structural space.
Right.
So you park on the street, but you know that at any moment, this invisible code 00002 could sweep through the neighborhood and hit you with a massive fine. You're entirely trapped.
You are squeezed between a complex that physically cannot hold you and a street that actively punishes you for existing there.
Man. So if you are trapped by this invisible code 00002, and you obviously can't change the physical footprint of your townhouse complex,
No, you can't.
then your only remaining option is to change the legal nature of the street itself, which forces these residents to mount a highly specific, organized counteroffensive. And here's where it gets really interesting, because they don't just write an angry letter saying, "We are mad, please fix this."
No, an angry letter would just get filed away in a basement somewhere.
Right.
To survive, these residents had to adapt. They had to learn the language of the bureaucracy that was punishing them. Let's look at who this petition is actually addressed to.
Okay.
It's not just broadly addressed to the City of Toronto or even the mayor. It is addressed to the Ward 23 councillor and the clerk of the Scarborough Community Council.
That level of specificity is wild to me.
It is.
If you've ever had to dispute a municipal utility bill or, like, get a permit to build a fence in your own backyard,
Oh, it's awful.
you know exactly how exhausting it is to translate your basic human needs into the specific subclauses the city requires to even look at you. The fact that ordinary citizens figured out that the clerk of the Scarborough Community Council is the exact gatekeeper they need to bypass code 00002 is incredible. It's like finding the hidden exhaust cord on the Death Star.
It really is. And the weapon they are using to fight back is equally precise.
What did they use?
The petition states they are formally requesting the city to amend the parking regulations under Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 925.
After 925.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the burden that reveals.
Yeah.
To simply park their cars at night, a basic function of living in a car-dependent area, ordinary citizens have to become amateur municipal lawyers.
It's so true.
They have to identify the exact administrative clerk, they have to cite the correct overarching municipal chapter, and they have to frame their very human struggle for a parking spot in the cold, sterile language of civic legislation.
And they do it so surgically. Like, let's look at exactly what they're asking Chapter 925 to do.
Okay.
They're requesting resident on-street permit parking operating between 12:00 a.m. and 7 a.m. That specific window of time, 12 a.m. to 7 a.m., is brilliant. They aren't asking for the moon here.
No, they aren't. And that precision is defensive engineering on their part.
How so?
Well, if they asked for 24/7 free parking...
They just laugh them out of the room.
Exactly. The city engineers would immediately reject it, citing daytime traffic flow, or street sweepers, or garbage collection.
Oh, right. So by explicitly asking for a 7-hour window in the dead of night, they are preempting the city's counter-arguments.
Yes.
They're essentially doing the traffic engineers' jobs for them.
Exactly. And think about what those specific hours imply on a human level.
12:00 a.m. to 7:00 a.m.
Right. They aren't asking for daytime convenience. They aren't asking for guest parking so they can host a weekend barbecue.
No.
They are asking for the right to sleep.
Wow. They're just asking for the biological necessity of going to bed without anxiety.
They are saying to the Scarborough Community Council, just give us a permit so we can sleep through the night without the fear of waking up to a punitive fine under code 00002.
That is so sad, but also so smart.
It is. They are forcing the city to acknowledge that their vehicles have to legally exist somewhere while they are unconscious in their beds.
Right?
And to get that point across, they even adopt the city's own infrastructural terminology, asking for the zone to be established along the, quote, public street curb infrastructure adjacent to 401 Sewells Road.
Public street curb infrastructure.
Just bureaucratic.
It's such a mouthful. No one actually talks like that in real life.
Not at all.
But you can feel them trying so hard to play the game perfectly. They are jumping through every single hoop.
Every single one.
They've defined the structural failure. They've targeted the exact community council clerk. They've cited Chapter 925. They've narrowed their request to the 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. window, and they're gathering all the physical signatures from their neighbors.
They have built an ironclad civic document.
Right. So you read all this and you think, okay, they submit the petition, the clerk reads it, and the problem is solved.
You'd hope so.
They get their overnight parking permits.
Right. Well, this brings us to the final and perhaps most sobering part of the document. We need to look closely at what the residents are actually achieving by signing their names at the bottom of this petition.
Okay, wait, let me read the final text here.
Go ahead.
It says, by signing below, we indicate our support for the city to conduct a formal transportation services review and community poll to establish an overnight permit parking zone. Wait, a review? And a poll. So submitting this perfectly cited petition doesn't actually fix the problem.
No, it doesn't. And this perfectly encapsulates the grinding gears of local government.
You're kidding.
A petition, no matter how perfectly written, no matter how accurately it cites Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 925, does not actually change the law on its own.
So it functions more like a subpoena.
How do you mean?
Like, it doesn't mean you win the court case. It just legally forces the city to show up to the courtroom.
That is a fantastic analogy. Yes. The signatures on this petition act solely as a catalyst.
Just a catalyst.
Exactly. They are the friction required simply to turn the bureaucratic engine on. The petition doesn't grant them parking. It merely forces the municipal machinery to acknowledge they have a grievance.
It just triggers this formal transportation services review.
Precisely.
And what does that actually mean for the residents in practice, like day to day?
It means that after doing all this legal legwork themselves, city engineers will now be deployed to study the street.
Okay.
The city has to determine internally if it is physically and legally viable to allow parking there between 12 a.m. and 7 a.m., despite the residents already proving they have no other option.
Okay, so they have to wait for a traffic study. But the text also says this triggers a community poll.
Yes.
Let's ELI 5 this. Explain it like I'm 5. Does that mean after doing all this legal paperwork, these residents literally have their fate decided by their neighbors?
Yes, that is exactly what it means.
Come.
If the Transportation Services Review comes back positive, the city doesn't just grant the permit, they initiate a community poll. The city will reach out to the surrounding neighborhood people who may have their own driveways and don't face this structural shortage and ask if they agree to having a permit parking zone established on Sewells Road.
You have got to be kidding me.
I wish I was.
So their fundamental need to just park their cars and sleep is subjected to a neighborhood popularity contest.
Yep.
What if the homeowners on the next street over just don't like the aesthetic of cars parked on the curb? They could vote no and kill the whole thing.
They absolutely could. The poll turns a structural housing issue into a democratic hurdle.
That's wild.
It requires immense social capital. The residents of 401 Sewells Road might literally have to go knock on the doors of homeowners on neighboring streets, explain their structural shortage, explain code 00002, and beg them to vote yes on a municipal poll just so they can park safely.
That is just staggering. It really proves that changing your neighborhood, even in the smallest, most hyper-local way, requires navigating impossibly thick layers of bureaucracy.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. You don't just ask for change and receive it. You do weeks of legal research just to ask for the opportunity to be evaluated for change.
And this is why the single piece of paper is so compelling. It asserts the presence of everyday people in a system explicitly designed to be navigated by administrative experts.
It genuinely is exhausting just breaking it all down. But it leaves you with a profound respect for the people at 401 Sewells Road. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's look at the incredible civic journey we just took by examining this one document.
It's quite a journey.
We started with a severe structural shortage at a townhouse complex, a fundamental architectural flaw that literally forced residents out of their own driveways and onto the public street.
And once on the street, they were trapped.
Exactly. They hit the invisible wall of an unposted 3-hour limit, discovering it only when the punitive fines of code 00000 started appearing on their windshields. And in response, rather than just quietly paying the fines or moving away, these everyday citizens transformed into legal tacticians.
They really did.
They figured out exactly who held the power: the clerk of the Scarborough Community Council. They wielded Municipal Code Chapter 925 as a shield, and they surgically demanded a 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. window just to sleep, without financial penalty.
Incredible.
And they did all of this simply to trigger a formal review and a community poll, hoping that eventually they might win the right to park outside their own front doors.
If we connect all of this to the bigger picture, this raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider as we leave you today. Think back to that premise we started with, the danger of invisible rules.
Right.
The residents of 401 Sewells Road only discovered code 00002 when the city decided it was time to start punishing them. It makes you wonder what unposted rules and invisible codes are governing the streets right outside your own front door, just waiting for the city to decide to enforce them.